Good morning, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, good morning. Obeisances or close to Prabhupada.
My dandavats to you. How are you?
By your mercy, I feel positive, hopeful.
I say by my mercy and a few rupees, you can get a bottle of limca. But don't forget the money.
I'll try not to.
So you can go ahead, like we can just start. For those who don't know you, for those very unusual people in the movement that still haven't heard your name or haven't heard you speak. And this is Bhuta-Bhavana Prabhu, a disciple of Bhaktivedanta Swami, endowed with the gift of gab, and sometimes the gift of length as well. Who not only can speak well, eloquently, but also has a very good understanding of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness and the psychology behind it. So without further ado, it's your show, Prabhu. Take it away.
Thank you so much. I want to begin by saying it's a real honor, a real pleasure to be here, to be able to be of service to all of you. So I always like to begin by requesting the blessings of all the Vaishnavas, all the devotees, so we can hopefully speak something that will be pleasing to Srila Prabhupada, to the Guru Parampara, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his pure associates. Okay, so I've been asked to read from the Bhagavatam. We're going to be reading from the 5th Canto, Chapter 12. 5th Canto, Chapter 3, text number 12. I'm just going to ask, so you normally just start with the verse in purple. We don't do anything, that's my understanding. Is that correct, Sarvatma Prabhu?
That is correct.
Okay, no problem. So what I'll do is I'm going to share my screen actually. So I've got the actual verse in purple lined up, if that's okay.
Usually we have Taraka Prabhu posting it on the chat, so you, either way is fine. Taraka Prabhu, are you ready to share the verse?
All set.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so if you share the verse, and what I'll do is I will just read the verse in the purple, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so as we said, we're reading from the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is titled The Creative Impetus, Chapter 3, which is entitled Rishabdev's Appearance in the Womb of Meru Devi, the wife of King Nabi, and we'll be reading verse number 12. Okay, so I'll read the Sanskrit, the translation, the purport, and then we're going to discuss based upon that. So I was looking at this verse. I'll just, to be honest, I'm not fully sure about the meter, so I'm just going to read it because it's quite an interesting length, and then we'll go into the meaning and then go from there. But I'll start by saying Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Ata Katanchit Stakalana Sutpatana Drimbana Duravastana Dishu Vivasanam Naha Smaranyaya Jwara Marana Dasyam Api Sakala Kasmala Nirasanani Tava Gunakrita Namadeyani Vachana Goracharani Bhavantu. Okay, Ata, still. Katanchit, somehow or other. Skalana. Yeah. Skalana, stumbling. Shut, hunger. Patana, falling down. Drimbana, yawning. Duravastana, because of being placed in an undesirable position, adishu, and so on. Vivashanan, unable, naha, of ourselves, smaranaya, to remember, jwara marana dashayam, in the case of having a high fever at the time of death, api, also, sakala, all, kashmala, sins, nirashanani, which can dispel, tava, your, guna, attributes, krita, activities, namadeyani, names, vachana, goracharani, possible to be uttered, bhavantu, let them become. Translation, and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Dear Lord, we may not be able to remember your name, form, and qualities due to stumbling, hunger, falling down, yawning, or being in a miserable, diseased condition at the time of death when there is a high fever. We therefore pray unto you, O Lord, for you are very affectionate to your devotees. Please help us remember you and utter your holy names, attributes, and activities which can dispel all the reactions of our sinful lives. Purport. The real success in life is ante narayana smriti, remembering the holy name, attributes, activities, and form of the Lord at the time of death. Although we may be engaged in the Lord's devotional service in the temple, material conditions are so tough and inevitable that we may forget the Lord at the time of death due to a diseased condition or mental derangement. Therefore, we should pray to the Lord to be able to remember his lotus feet without fail at the time of death, when we are in such a precarious condition. In this regard, one may also see Srimad Bhagavatam 6.2.9.10 and 14.15. Okay. Megyanatamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Militamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Twam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Virjana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padansa Hagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchikapatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and then in this section of the Bhagavatam, we are hearing about how this king, King Nabi, he and his wife Meru Devi, they've been desiring to have Lord Vishnu as a child, and the Lord has appeared before them. And then there are prayers which are being made in glorification of the Lord. And it's an interesting verse in purple that we are being exposed to here. It's very interesting. Let's start here. Atrasaka visagas jastanam poshanam utaya manvanta ishanukata niroda mukti ashraya. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavatam itself states that there are 10 themes of the Bhagavatam. Saga, Visaga, Stanam. This fifth canto, according to some of our acharyas, this fifth canto relates to the theme of Stanam. Stanam sometimes it means the structure of the universe. So in the fifth canto, we'll have a very extensive description of the different planetary systems, the hellish planets, the middle planets, the higher planetary system, the living entities on those different places, etc. So Stanam also means the position, right? One's position. And here, what we are witnessing is how one's position will also change throughout one's life. When we have a younger body, we're in a position of dependence with our elders, with regards to our elders. Then we come to the, let's say, the middle stage of our adult life, okay? So then we are taking responsibility for ourselves, maybe expanding the field in terms of children, etc. And then as is being spoken about here, and this is such a crucial lesson, as is being spoken about here, we're learning about the future situation. In the Bhagavad Gita, what does Krishna say? Antikali chamameva smarmutva kalevaram ya prati samadbhavam yati nasjasya samsayaha. He says, whatever we think about at the time of death, to that state we will attain. So in this particular verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, these prayers are being made. Dear Lord, we may not be able to remember your name, form, and qualities. Then so many reasons are given. And therefore, what is being given us the gift of this particular verse is the heartbeat of the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. The heartbeat of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The heartbeat of every Vaishnava's aspiration. What is that heartbeat, ladies and gentlemen? That heartbeat. The heartbeat is the hope, and that heartbeat is the Sharanagati. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written in his Harinam Chintamani that within the culture of Krishna consciousness, there is the Swarup Lakshanam and there is the Tatasya Lakshanam. Interestingly enough, what he calls the Tatasya Lakshanam, the secondary qualities of a devotee, is exactly the thing that for many of us as devotees, we take as the primary. What do I mean by that? We meet some devotee and they're nice to us. They deal with us properly. They're respectful. They have these qualities. What are these qualities? The 26 qualities of a Vaishnava. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has stated that these 26 qualities, they are Tatasya Lakshanam. They're secondary. But what does he say is the heartbeat of a devotee? The Swarup Lakshanam, the primary quality of a devotee, is this Sharanagati, this surrender. And in this particular verse, that surrender is being expressed. What is that expression? In this verse, what does it say? We therefore pray unto you, O Lord, for you are very affectionate to your devotees. Please help us remember you and utter your holy name's attributes and activities which can dispel all the reactions of our sinful lives. In other words, the most powerful thing that any devotee can do, and the heartbeat of every single one of us as Vaishnavas, is our dependence on Krishna. It starts with this dependence. So when we talk about the primary and secondary, why is it that this surrender is primary? It is just like the seed that yields the tree, that yields the fruit. Okay? Because surrender is so important, if that surrender is there, then in due course of time, that surrender, that seed of bhakti, this bhakti lata bij, that surrender, implanted in the fertile soil of the heart. That means that seed of bhakti implanted in the soil, in the fertile soil of a sincere devotee's heart, will over time give rise to these fruits. What are these fruits? These qualities: expert, compassion, grave, sobriety, merciful, humble. All of these qualities automatically manifest when one waters the seed of devotion through the sincere process of hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna, fenced, protected in the loving embrace and the loving association of the Vaishnavas. There is a secret, there are many secrets to our Vaishnava tradition. And it's very interesting. It is sometimes considered that these teachings can be understood at many different levels. So something can be understood at the level of what we call aparavidya, so external level. And then we can go deeper into it and we can understand the same thing at the level of the paravidya, which is the deep spiritual meaning. On the external level, this verse and this purport it's an invitation to look into the distance of our lives. Okay, this has meaning even on an external spiritual level. What do I mean by external spiritual? When we are engaging in this Sankirtan Yajna, it is external spiritual. Lord Chaitanya, when he came for different reasons. The external reason, but it was external spiritual, not external material. The external spiritual reason was the spreading of this Nam Sankirtan mission. The internal spiritual mission was to spread the same mission throughout our consciousness and throughout the heart of the devotee. So there are two types of Sankirtan. There is the external Sankirtan and there is the internal Sankirtan. What is that internal Sankirtan? The internal Sankirtan is when every aspect of my being becomes absorbed in offering everything that I am in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the external Sankirtan and the internal Sankirtan, both are themes inspired by this verse in purple. Now, when we talk about looking off into the distance of our lives, what does this mean practically? It is the compassionate power of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is the compassionate power of all of our acharyas, especially His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, to awaken every one of us to reality. All of our issues in life, and I mean all issues, with absolutely no exception, all material issues, all spiritual issues, they come down to this same one issue. What does the Bhagavatam says? Bhagavatam says the root cause of all suffering is ignorance. Ignorance, the willingness and the tendency to ignore that which is true. So when we do a deep inventory in our lives and in the lives of every single individual that we know, whether they're a devotee, practicing, not practicing, it doesn't matter. The first sign of danger, ladies and gentlemen, the first sign of danger is the tendency to ignore the truth. And in this purport, what does Prabhupada do? He alerts us to some of the inconvenient truths of this material body. What does he say? He says, and let's look at this, the wording he's used is so important. He says, the real success of in life is Ante Narayana Smriti, remembering the holy name, attributes, activities, and form of the Lord at the time of death. although we may be engaged in the Lord's devotional service, so he's speaking to the practicing devotees, material conditions are so tough. And what does he say? This is the word that struck me. Material conditions are so tough and inevitable that we may forget the Lord at the time of death. It's not just the material conditions are tough. It means they're tough and no one is able to get around them. Inevitable. Again, looking off into the distance. What does it mean? It's the compassionate vision of the Bhagavatam to tap us lovingly on the shoulder and remind us of the realities. If I know that there's a situation that I can't avoid, let's look at that again. If every one of us know, dude, let me give you a heads up. Tomorrow or next week, you're going to run into a situation you absolutely can't avoid. But psst, because I've given you a heads up, you can prepare for it. Someone who tells us that with love, with compassion, not only with love and compassion, but they've given it to us with love and compassion. And because they care about this, they put their arm over our shoulder and they tell us, not only am I going to give you a heads up, but I'm going to help you to prepare for it. What does love mean? Love means you help people to prepare for that which is inevitable. And what is inevitable? Inevitable means the time of death for the living entity in this world. That's what we mean by inevitable. It's interesting. When we look at the English language, people talk about being disillusioned. What does that mean? It means that something that I was illusioned about, someone took away my illusion. And we often think about it as a bad thing. I feel disillusioned. I thought it was one way and then I found out that actually something else was going on. But that's often the greatest gift that someone can give us, because if we understand what's true, we can deal with it. I was speaking to one devotee this morning who had been going through some therapy. And we were talking, I was trying to understand, like, so when you went through the therapy, like, how did, like, because they grew, this person has really grown and they're stronger and they're mentally stronger and so many things. I was thinking, how does this work? Like, when that happens, like, what changes? And they said something very interesting to me. They said to me, they said, it helped me to accept the realities of my experience in a healthy way. That's what they said to me. It helped me to accept the truth of what I'd been through and to process it in a healthy way. And I thought, wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. This ability to come to terms with, right? That's what we say. We say someone came to terms with their past, or they came to terms with the reality of a situation. In other words, in some small way or some big way, the ignorance was overcome. This is what it is. Jamma mrityu jara vadi dukkha doshanudarshanam. Birth, old age, disease, and death. People use the word euphemisms, right? So sometimes people say, oh, she passed away in her sleep. She passed away peacefully. And sometimes in the world, there's a debate about euthanasia. Should we kill the person when they're at a particular age and maybe they're lying down and their body's in a certain space, and shouldn't we kill them because we want to be merciful? When we unpack that, what's behind that? What's behind that in many cases, not all perhaps, but in many cases, merciful to who? Well, the person, they're in a certain state. Is it merciful to them? Or is it, I don't want to be around seeing them in that particular condition because it disturbs me? When we talk about the situation of another person, are we able to bring ourselves into their situation? Do we understand what they are experiencing? Or what does Prabhupada say? Or do I just continue to see the world from my own position? Prabhupada sometimes makes that point. that everyone sees the world from their own position. So this is the overview. And that is the beauty of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is a loving reminder. This is the terrain in the material world. And this is the path through that terrain. These are the bumps on the road. This is the kind of tires that you need to move through that terrain. And if we can get you to the airport on time, I've got a holiday destination for you that is literally out of this world. So we need to be reminded of the realities. I'm teaching, there's a book, Leadership for an Age of Higher Consciousness, Part 2. And in the book, it's got two sections. One is Bhishmadev's instructions to Yudhisthira. The other section is the teachings of Prithu Maharaj. So we're teaching a group of business people. We've been teaching them for since August last year on leadership from the book. And I think it was earlier this year, one of the sessions that we did with them, we got them to do an experiment, like a little exercise, let's say. So I got them to think about 3 factors. I'm just going to run them through with you, just something for you to think about. The first thing I told them, I said, okay, so now, today, Sunday, 2nd of April, 2023, I want you to just imagine something for me. I want you to imagine that you've just died. That was point number 1. So you've just died. What are the things that you feel most proud about? You've just died, you're looking back on your life right now. What are the things that you're most proud about? And number 2, what are the things which constitute your deepest regrets? And we got them to write that down. That was the first part of the exercise. The second part of the exercise, I said to them, okay, now I want you to consider the people in your network, the people that you know, friends, family, work colleagues, etc. So what are they saying about you? What are they thinking about you? What are they feeling about you now that you've just passed away? That was the second part of the exercise. So write it down. Got them to write it down. The third part of the exercise, I said, okay, now, so you've looked at what your greatest successes are and your deepest regrets. You've looked at what people who know you would be saying, thinking, and feeling about you. The third question is, what would you want them to be saying, thinking, and feeling about you, and why? So in the activity, we try to transport that group to their time of death. Why? Because actually death can energize us to really live our life with vitality and value. In this particular section of the Bhagavatam, these prayers are very, very significant. And Prabhupada begins the purport, the real success in life is Ante Narayana Smriti, remembering the holy name, attributes, activities, and form of the Lord at the time of death. But we know that life defines death because 2 sides of the same coin. I'm actually in America. Actually, I'm in America from when? From Thursday, actually. I'm in New Vrindavan from Thursday. So there's a retreat with His Holiness Chandramuli Maharaj. So he's asked me to speak. So we're speaking on Madhuri Kadambini. And so I'm speaking on Nishta. And I was trying to think, how do I make this interactive? What are some ways in which we can bring this forward? Something came to my mind yesterday. And it was the idea that if there's something to gain, then there's something to lose. Okay, so think about that carefully. If there's something for us to gain materially, it means there's something for me to lose materially. Why? Because the same thing about life and death, the gain and the loss are 2 sides of the same coin. Right? Imagine, you can't have a coin with just one side. If it's got one side, it means it's got the other side as well, the other polarity, because the coin is the symbol of the material world, the symbol of duality. If there's something for me to gain, it also means that there's something for me to lose. And I was thinking about this in relation to Nishta. Why? Because in Nishta, there's a certain degree of detachment in one's devotional service. What does that mean? It means that if there's nothing for me to gain materially, it also means that there's nothing for me to lose. When there's something for me to gain, there's also something for me to lose. That's why I become fearful. You see, that's what fear means. If there's something for me to gain, there's something for me to lose, therefore I fear. But at higher stages of devotion, there's nothing for me to gain materially. Therefore, there's nothing for me to lose. Therefore, I am fearless. Therefore, I'm fearless. When we think about the progression of spiritual life, we understand that fearlessness means when we do everything simply for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. I was listening to Prabhupada. I'm going through all of Prabhupada's classes from the beginning, right? So I'm hearing these classes. I actually had a break for a period, but I was hearing all the classes, 1960s classes. And Prabhupada is making some amazing points. And he explains, he gives such a brilliant and realized example of this detachment, this fearlessness. He explains, he said, it's just like you're working for a big organization. Okay, you got a job in a company. So what happens is you go to work every day, you do your job, you do your duty. Now, some years that company, that business does very, very well. They make a huge profit, but you still get the same salary. Right? Some years the company doesn't do so well, but it doesn't matter because whether it does well or not, you always get paid your salary. And Prabhupada was explaining that's what it means to work with detachment. Right? I do what I'm meant to be doing. If the business goes up, business goes down, makes no difference. I'm getting paid. Now think about that. If someone is secure that whatever happens, they're going to get paid, then they can be absolutely fearless in doing the very, very best that they can. Because literally, what does it mean? It means that you can't lose. It means that you cannot actually lose. That's the beauty of Krishna consciousness. Just like Krishna tells Arjuna, in success or in failure, you just serve me. I'll make sure you get paid. Right? That's the point. You do your best in every circumstance, whether it goes well or doesn't go well, it's actually no reflection on you. I'll make sure you get paid. And what does that pay? That pay is to return to the eternal spiritual situation. It's interesting. You can take it even further. You could say, okay, whatever you do externally, whatever material distress you're meant to have, it's going to come. Whatever material success, or let's say material external outcome you're meant to have, it will come. But then the devotional can supplement everything. Isn't that amazing? We are, in our involvement in Krishna consciousness, we're literally involved in a situation. If we give ourselves to that situation, we're literally involved in a situation where, whether it's externally a success or a failure, ladies and gentlemen, you can't lose. You can't lose. And again, what's that heartbeat? This is what makes the process of bhakti yoga different from all other processes of yoga and different from all other, let's say, more mundane paths of conscious development. What's that difference? The difference is the dependence. So we're not trying to achieve anything by our own strength. We're trying to achieve everything by our own dependence. It's a very, very significant shift. Krishna wants to take care of you more than you want to be taken care of. This is a special quality of the Gaudiya Vaishnava approach. We're not trying to become Krishna conscious by our own strength. What we're trying to do by our own strength is to fully surrender and to be carried in the devotional, loving embrace of Krishna. Why? Why? It's because that is the very nature of a loving exchange. The very nature of a loving exchange is that whatever you receive by surrender, you know it's an affectionate offering. Krishna wants to rekindle the loving exchange between himself and his devotees. And how does he do this? How does he do this? He wants to put his devotees in a position where he can give them everything. And what does that mean? To give the devotees everything means to give the devotees himself. The Supreme Personality of Godhead wants to give himself to his devotees. And that's what we're reading this section of the Bhagavatam. King Nabi and his wife, they've made prayers, and guess what? The Supreme Personality of Godhead has appeared before them. And then he will appear as Rishabdev. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead will appear as their own son. So there's a reciprocation. We call this rasa, this loving exchange. The Supreme Personality of Godhead wants to express his affection. Now, it's an unpopular thing to say in the modern world, where so much of the music and the songs is the idea, well, I just need to find the right person. Krishna says more. He says it's not just a question of finding the right person, it's a question of being the right person. Krishna is always loving his devotees. The question is, are we able to reciprocate with that love? Is the heart open enough to be sensitive to feel that love? Because the love is always there. So the issue isn't with Krishna, the issue may be with our sensitivity. And therefore, what is Bhakti Yoga? Another lens on this process of Krishna consciousness is the Bhakti Yoga Krishna consciousness is a preparation of the heart. It's preparing the heart to be receptive to fully consciously experience the love that Krishna is always exchanging with his own devotees. And the more that we are able to experience that love, the more that we're able to reciprocate with that love as well. There's a story I wanted to share with you. So it's an inspirational story. So there was a story of a king, and the king had 4 wives. Okay, he had 4 wives. The first wife was the wife he met in his childhood. They'd been together for the longest time, but at a certain point, the king also became a bit bored, like that. Then he married again. Okay, so the next wife he married, he was very proud of her. He always wanted to show off this wife, right? The third wife, he wanted to show her off to his friends, but he was always fearful that his third wife would run away with some other man. Okay. Then the king, he loved his second wife as well. This wife, she was very considerate, and he would talk a lot with this wife, his second wife, and he would share his thoughts. And when he needed help, when in times of need, he would turn to his second wife, and she would help him out and tide him through difficulties. Okay. Now, the fourth wife, It's very interesting. The fourth wife was a very loyal partner. But the king, he would treat her in a certain way. Actually, well, let me just make sure I got the story right. Actually, so he had four wives. Let's say the fourth wife was the most adorned wife. So the fourth wife was the one that he gave the most clothes to, beautiful dresses. He gave her delicacies. He took great care of her. So that's the fourth wife. And then the last one we'll talk about is the first wife. Okay, the first wife was a very loyal partner. He gave her not much attention. She loved him immensely, but he was so busy with the other three wives that he hardly spent any time with his first wife, hardly spent any time with her. Now, the story goes that as the years passed, the merchant, this pastime in the Bhagavatam is talking about the time of death, etc. As the years passed, this king fell ill and he was on his deathbed. And at the end of his life, he had all four wives besides him, and he wanted one of them to accompany him after his death. So he asked his fourth wife, right? The one who he'd given all time and attention to, he adorned her with dresses and delicacies. So he asked his fourth wife, he said, I loved you the most and I showered great care over you. Now that I'm dying, will you follow me and keep me company? And she said, no way. And his fourth wife, she walked away from him without even a word. Not even a word. The king then asked his third wife, he said, all my life I treasured you with my love. Now I'm dying. Will you follow me and keep me company? And the third wife said, no. Life is so good over here. I'm going to find someone else when you die. The moment you die, I'm going to go and find another partner. That was the third wife. The king looked at the second wife, and before he could ask her to come along with him, she just said to him, I'm sorry, I can't come along with you, right? At the most, I can only accompany you to your grave. Okay? Now, this king, he was heartbroken. And then, as he was preparing to leave, he heard a voice. His first wife spoke to him. And without him even asking her, she said to him, I will come with you. I will always accompany you through life, through death, and I'll even accompany you beyond. The king actually regretted the way that he had treated those different wives. He regretted that the one wife, my first wife, the one wife who's prepared to come with me through thick and thin, that's the one I actually neglected the most. He realized something about the foolishness of the way that he'd lived. And it's interesting because those four wives also indicate something about our own lives. So we'll explain how this whole thing works. So the fourth wife, the one who said that I'll never go with you, right? I'm just going to go straight away. The fourth wife represents our body. No matter how much we take care of the body. So that fourth wife was the one that the king gave delicacies to, great dresses and so on, just like the way that most people decorate and give attention to their body. The fourth wife represents the body. And no matter what happens, when we die, that body goes immediately. Okay. The third wife, right? The one who said, the moment you leave, I'm going to go with someone else. The third wife represents our wealth and our possessions. So the moment that we die, the wealth and possessions, they immediately leave us. So that was the third wife. The second wife, she said, I can only accompany you up to the grave. The second wife represents our friends and family, accompanying us up to the grave, but they can't go beyond that. So the first wife, who said, even without asking, that I will be with you in life, I will be with you at the time of death, and I'll be with you even beyond. The first wife represents our soul, the real self. And it's interesting, that wife was the one that the king had neglected the most. So again, this idea of being in touch with the reality. If we know, as we do from the Bhagavatam, as we do even just from basic considerations about the patterns of life, if we know that actually the time of death will be there for everyone, right? The Bhagavatam is a conversation within a conversation. You know, what is it? It's Maharaj Parikshit. He knows that he has been cursed to die in 7 days. Right? So he's listening to Shukadev Goswami. And he's asking many different questions. And just by their exchange, one is understanding, what does one do when one knows that they are going to leave the world? What should one do with one's time and energy? So Parikshit Maharaj knows, I'm going to die in 7 days. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Every single one of us, we're also going to die within 7 days, right? Guaranteed. There'll be a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. One of these 7 days, each and every one of us will leave. The question is, what do we do with our time to prepare for that inevitable experience? So we have an opportunity through Krishna consciousness to prepare for the inevitable. Isn't that amazing? Right? If you look at the world, isn't that amazing? The material energy is so powerful that the one thing that everyone can agree on as inevitable, no one is ready to make any preparation for. Just look how powerful the material energy is. Devye Shagunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya. Mame Vaye Prapadyante Mayam Etam Tarantite. This divine energy of mind consisting of the three modes of material nature is very difficult to overcome. And it's so powerful that even though everyone will agree that people, the material body, that, you know, the human beings on this planet, everyone passes away at some point. Everyone would agree on that, right? It doesn't matter what your political persuasion is, nationality, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, everyone will agree on that. Yes, everyone who's born has to die. Inevitable. But no one will prepare for it. Incredible. The material energy, its effect is inevitable, and the ability to cover people with illusion is incredible. And those who can escape it are the devotees. So when Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Kalosmi, time I am, right? He says that. Time I am, the destroyer of all these worlds. When he says that, we know that Krishna is time. And if we love Krishna, if we serve Krishna, if we practice that consciousness, then at the time of death, the same person that we built a relationship with, he will build our bridge from the material back to the spiritual world. As my spiritual master used to say, if you think about this point, and it's such a deep point, we are, if we do this properly, we have an opportunity to end all suffering and all misery forever. I'm going to repeat that because it's so deep. We have an opportunity if we get this right, and actually it's not even getting it right, if we do the best that we can to completely end all misery, all suffering, all birth, all death, all old age, all disease, once and for all. We never have to go through any more pain or suffering. And there's two dimensions to that. One is we get out of the wheel of samsara, but the other is if we practice Krishna consciousness properly, even when the body starts to break down, the consciousness won't break down. What did they tell Prabhupada? One doctor saw Prabhupada. They told Prabhupada, they examined Prabhupada's body and they said to him, Prabhupada, there is so many things wrong with your body that you should be howling in pain. They told Prabhupada that. How is it possible that he wasn't doing that? It's because the consciousness was in a different place. So this is the opportunity for the devotees. We can move beyond the inevitable because the difficulties of the material world are the difficulties of the body. They're inevitable. But the consciousness can go beyond it. And there's two dimensions. One is our effort, but most importantly is Krishna's kindness. So what we're trying to do in Krishna consciousness, ladies and gentlemen, the heartbeat is to surrender with affection to someone who loves us, understands us, knows us, and wants to care for us more than we can possibly do for ourselves. The purpose of the material world is that in the material world, we unfortunately have people, the majority of people, who are scared of love, fearful of love. Maybe we've had such intense, disappointing experiences in the material world that even the idea that there's a person who can genuinely care and love someone even like me, it becomes something that's hard to comprehend. Therefore, we have Guru. Therefore, we have Acharyas. Therefore, we have the Shastra. And all of these narratives, these real historical events, what are they meant to do? They're simply meant to convince us that there is a loving personality and force in existence who wants to take care of us in all respects and to remove all suffering from our lives, whereby we go back to the spiritual world. And what do you experience there? What do you experience on the spiritual platform? The spiritual world has all variety, more variety than we have here. In the spiritual world, there are colors that don't even exist in the material world. Can you imagine that? How can that be possible? What could be another color beyond the spectrum that we see here? But they exist. Yeah? Everything is animate. Can you imagine? The water is actually animate. It's alive. The trees, the blade of grass, it's alive. Yeah? Krishna's fan club. And everyone loves Krishna. In the spiritual world, you have also your own family, your own form, your own offering of service, Eka Dasa Bhav, the 11 particulars of your spiritual identity. Your particular rasa, the service you like to perform for Krishna, your particular age, all of these different things, they're all present, fully manifest, fully animate. And you have a specific way of relating to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what does that mean? We're going to make effort anyway. Everyone makes some effort in life anyway. But to make an effort for something that will give you an eternal result, and that as a side effect will even mitigate the suffering in the material world. And that's directly Bhagavatam, by the way. That's 4th Canto. That's the verse by Narada Muni, who talks about it dealing properly with our seniors, peers, and juniors. He says, if one does that properly, all the sufferings of the material world will be mitigated. So even in the application of Krishna consciousness, we minimize our suffering, we maximize our ability to return to the spiritual world. If we just remember these truths, if we just live by and act on these truths, then our future, to say it's bright is an understatement. Our future will be breathtaking. So maybe we'll stop there. We'll see what kind of comments or questions people have. I could see a hand up by Taraka. Is it okay for me to take questions? Savad, if you're around.
Yes, I am around. Please do take questions.
Okay. Prabhu, Taraka Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I want to thank you for a very nice class. Very inspiring and thought-provoking. And I have a special request. I wanted to ask you to speak a little bit, if you could, on a specific verse and referred to by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada directs us to 4 additional verses in connection with this one. All of this discussion, let me put it in context for you. It all has very special meaning for me. Because what it's talking about is precisely what I'm experiencing right now. I'm struggling for Krishna consciousness. I can die at any moment. And when I say any moment, I mean any moment. As we speak, I'm experiencing very intense cardiac symptoms. I can actually pass away right now. I had numerous close calls yesterday. I came within a hair's breadth of leaving my body, struggling, unable to breathe, unable to move, trying desperately to chant my rounds. I began, Prabhupada is talking about sometimes the difficulties of trying to think of Krishna at the time of death. I began my rounds yesterday, quite early in the morning, I don't know, 2 or 3 a.m. I fasted all day, so I had nothing else to do the entire day. I had all of my time. I did not finish my last round until after 2 a.m. this morning. And all I did was chant. That was my absolute best effort to hear and chant, trying my damnedest to hear and chant the best I could. Every round took me well over an hour. An incredible struggle, and through it, I was passing out, losing consciousness, and my breathing stopping, and then waking up, suffocating, and unable to breathe. Just fighting for my life and trying to chant Hare Krishna. Mostly unable to hear with attention, just fighting and struggling. So this particular verse has special meaning for me, and I'd be very interested to hear anything that you could contribute that might help me under these circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm just going to say a quick prayer first. Give me 1 second. So this verse in purple that we've been reading from, and I guess the real essence of it is that you should understand that what you're doing is very, very powerful and you're doing the best that you actually can. And I think it's a very, very important point to understand. What you're doing is the topmost activity for someone at the stage of in life or at death. You're doing everything that you can to call upon Krishna, to remember Krishna. I would say, wherever possible for all of us, we should also, wherever possible, see where we can get that assistance, like you're doing now, right? So you're hearing about Krishna, but you're not having to necessarily read the books, but you're connecting to other devotees. And so collectively, the full benefit of your own effort and other people's assistance will then come, other devotees' assistance will then also come to your aid. You know, so I would say first of all that you're an example. I would say first of all you're an example because you're showing both determination, you're showing endeavor. I would also say, to be honest, just as a person to person, our heart goes out to you just for the situation you're in, to be very honest with you. You know, but I would really encourage you to keep doing what you're doing as best as you can, and to get whatever assistance or support is available, so that at this particular time in your life, that as much mercy, as much blessings, as much assistance comes with you at this stage in your journey, so that whatever happens, you've done the best that you can. And then I would also say to you, know that having done the best that you can, Krishna will help you, right? And I would also request all the devotees on the call right now to also please give your prayers, your own mercy, and your own blessings to Prabhu, especially at this time, so that whatever happens, however Krishna plans it, that the situation unfolds as auspiciously and as devotionally as possible. And then I would also say, Prabhu, I have to personally say thank you to you, because from what you're sharing, you're taking the pages of the Bhagavatam and you're making it graphically, you're making it an even more real experience for every single one of us. I always take it that there are no accidents. I didn't choose this verse in purple. Sarvadna Prabhu told me this is a verse in purple we'd like you to speak on. I don't know who's going to come to these particular classes. So now you've come. I don't know you, but now that you've shared the situation, what I take from this situation is even more of a reminder. Yes, this is the situation that we all go through. And I think it's very powerful that Krishna has allowed you to be here, because otherwise, and I remember Sachinanda Maharaj saying this, we hear these books, we read these books so many times that we can become desensitized. So it's like, yes, yeah, Maharaj Brooks, he's going to pass away, yeah, time of death, yes, Prabhupada says that, yeah, it's in the purple, yeah, Prabhupada says that in the verse. But now I'm hearing you, it becomes even more graphic. It becomes even more real. And I think this is also a reminder just how precious every moment is, and how every moment, every second can be transferred into a spiritual eternity if we offer that time in Krishna's service. So I will honestly say, thank you for enlightening me with your example. I would honestly say thank you for your sincere determination to do the best you can in your circumstance. And I would honestly say, I would humbly beg you that whatever assistance, whether it's coming on classes, whether it's people in the devotees in the vicinity, whatever assistance is available, please also connect with that support, especially at this time, to make whatever happens from this point onwards as auspicious and as blessed as possible. How does that sound to you? Does that make sense? What are your thoughts on that, please, Prabhu?
Auspiciousness sounds good. Yeah, I'm trying to do the best I can under the circumstances. What was theoretical throughout my devotional life has, become very, very real now. Jai Shri Shri Radha Damodar. I feel as though I haven't really done a great job throughout my life. I've been neglectful. I've wasted a lot of time, and now I'm suffering the consequences, struggling for Krishna consciousness, hope against hope in the 11th hour. And I got to tell you, it's really, really, really hard. Trying to hear and chant has become the most difficult thing I have ever done in my life. Once upon a time, hearing and chanting was easy, and it was just ecstatic. Now I struggle like I can't tell you, just trying to hear a syllable of the holy name, just trying to get the sound vibration out of my mouth, trying to hear it, trying to focus my mind. Everything is breaking down. Nothing works right. My ability to concentrate is practically destroyed. Everything has become so extremely difficult, extremely difficult. It's such a struggle, but I understand how important it is for me. I have suffered so much. Terrible, terrible suffering. I am sick and tired of suffering. I don't want to suffer anymore. I'm trying to effect a permanent solution. But my God, it is so hard at this stage. So hard. No one should think that it's necessarily going to get easier as time goes on. That hasn't been my experience. As I've approached this stage of my life, it's only become harder. Cognitive functions are failing, all kinds of bodily functions are breaking down, and it's made everything very, very difficult. It's an incredible challenge. So I'm depending very much on the association of other devotees. Particularly, I try to participate in Bhagavatam class every day. It seems like the thing to do for a man who's about to die.
Yes.
And I greatly appreciate the devotees who are speaking very nicely on Srimad Bhagavatam. Gives me subject matter to contemplate throughout my day. Why is my heart thank you again for your class. It was really nice for a man who's about to die. I appreciate all of your speaking, and today's class was particularly here. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you. And we pray for your situation. Pray to Prabhupada, the spiritual masters, to Guru Parampara. Hare Krishna. Salvatma Prabhu, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, if you don't think it's too I would like to add a couple of things. And one is that the verse Antinarayana Smriti, to remember, the goal is to remember Narayana or Krishna at the time of death. And this is, I don't think it's a rush job that you have to just make sure that in the last moment, you get rid of all your stuff and you just remember Krishna. This is not going to be possible. You can't even clean a house in that way. So it depends on your performance during your lifetime. And because Krishna is more merciful than we will ever be, he will provide the means by which you will be able to remember Krishna at the time of death. So to add anxiety to the already very anxious moment where you are leaving your body is not the purport of this particular verse. Also, I think living in a holy place, whether it's Vrindavan or Mayapur or Puri or Gitanagari, makes things come to a boil. It's not a normal environment. If you live in a place where there is no a joint effort to serve Krishna from many sincere Vaishnavas, then this pressure wouldn't be so much there. But in places like Gitanagari or Vrindavan, if you're going to leave your body in such places, then Krishna will have to make some kind of arrangement to accelerate your Krishna consciousness, making you struggle even more than before. And much in the same way when Vyasadeva was called by Satyavati to give progeny to the dynasty, and Ambika and Ambalika didn't want to undergo the austerity of waiting, training themselves for a whole year to be able to understand and be in the right consciousness to conceive with an avatar, Srila Vyasadeva. They then Vyasadeva said, okay, but they will have to accept me as I am. And that was a bit of a shock for both of them. So it is what it is. Our amount of suffering is coming to us. It's going to come one way or another. But what we can know is that if the suffering is in order to develop the muscle that we need, just like going to the gym, when you lift, the more weight you lift, the bigger your muscle, and the bigger the tear of your muscle that has to repair itself and build upon it. So I think when you're experiencing Taraga Prabhu is simply the natural process that you may be struggling, but this struggle is making you more and more Krishna conscious, and Krishna is not forgetting you. This is not the time that you're, how am I going to do it? This is actually makes your sincerity and your effort worthwhile. That's my 2 cents, Prabhu. Now I'll remain quiet.
Thank you for sharing that, Savadna Prabhu. Do we have any other questions, comments? Anything else anyone would like to share? So
Hare
let's-
Krishna Prabhu.
Hare
My
Krishna.
obeisances, Bhagavad Krishna Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for a wonderful class. Wanted to cast back on the portion that you mentioned in the beginning about external Sankirtan. There was a previous class you gave around external practitioners. I was just wondering if they're connected in any way.
When was this previous class? Because it depends on the context. Do you remember the context in which
Oh, yes.
we give?
It was something around, you mentioned Bhakti Vinod Thakur mentioning something about external practitioners versus internal practitioners.
Yeah, so he talks about the Bahya Mukhya Shishya. Bahya means external, Mukhya means facing, Shishya means disciple. So he talks about the difference. He says the Anta Mukhya Shishya and Bahya Mukhya Shishyas. So the internal disciples, the Anta Mukhya Shishyas, they are the ones who are more deep in their spiritual pursuit. They have the right understanding, the right orientation. The Bahya Mukhya Shishya, they have a more external, and when I say external, materialistic way of looking at spiritual life. So they're looking more for what they can gain. They're looking more for the prestige of having a certain position, all of these things, which are actually anatas. Yeah, so that's different to that's why I distinctly said at the beginning of this class, when we talk about Lord Chaitanya, he has an external mission and an internal mission. The external mission is to spread the Nam Sankirtan. The internal is to taste the love that Srimati Radharani has for Krishna. But Lord Chaitanya's external and internal, both of them are spiritual. Both of them are spiritual. In fact, one of the things I wanted to mention is that there's a connection between the two. And this is also relevant now with what's being said. There's a reason why we struggle. Okay? You should understand this. This is very, very important. There's a reason why we struggle. The spreading of Krishna consciousness, it is actually designed in such a way to cause the friction within the heart. Just like when you rub some stones against each other, they chip away at each other. But you keep doing it, they get smooth. The engagement in the Sankirtan Yagya, that's why it's a Yagya, a sacrifice, is to cause that friction, which allows us to bring up anything that's within the heart that needs to be cleared away. Because the only way that one can continue in that Sankirtan Yagya enthusiastically is to become Trinadapi, Sanichano, Torapi, Sahishnana, Amanina Manadena, Kirtaniya Sadahari. The Sankirtan Yagya is to churn everything in the heart that needs to be churned in such a way that the heart becomes sufficiently purified so that we can taste love of Godhead. The two things are intimately connected. In his Srila Prabhupada as our Acharya, he has understood that to gain the qualification to understand Radha and Krishna's exalted pastimes in the spiritual world, one has to do a tremendous amount of service, which is meant to purify the heart sufficiently so that one can selflessly hear these pastimes in the proper mood, with the proper purity, and therefore appreciate those pastimes for what they are, pure spiritual love. What stops one doing that is a self-centered mentality, either gross or subtle, or usually a mixture of the two types of gross and subtle self-centeredness. So therefore, in engaging in the Sankirtan Yagya, it is arranged personally by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that we will come across every type of obstacle that we specifically require in order to sufficiently purify the heart so that one can truly understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because unless one is properly selfless, one will project one's own self-centeredness in a subtle or gross way onto the spiritual platform. So the tests and the obstacles that we experience in pursuing the orders of the Acharya, which is to spread this mission, those tests and obstacles, they're distinctly meant for the purpose of helping us to come to the platform of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his associates in the spiritual world. Those pastimes, those obstacles are distinctly meant to purify us. But it only works if we see the obstacles and also see the affectionate hand that is arranging those obstacles for our own development. Right? Otherwise, the tendency is, and this is again Bahi Mukhya Shisha, the tendency is that we will see everything superficially, you see? And then we will not be able to have the determination to move forward. We will not have the determination to do what is right. And we will not have the hope, because the hope springs the hope inspires the determination. You see, if I hit an obstacle and I know that there's an affectionate arrangement behind the obstacle, I can keep determined to move forward. But if I hit an obstacle and I think that the entire thing is completely random, there's no purpose behind it, there's no one behind it, and there's no love behind it, then I lose the determination to keep on moving. So actually, I'd say that there's two things. Now, then I'll come to Kaylee for your question. There's two things to consider. One is the affection behind the obstacle, and there's the affection before the obstacle. The affection before the obstacle is Guru Sadhu Shastra. So they will give us the vision. Yes, at times in your life, you're going to hit these different kinds of challenges. This is how you should see them. And you should remember when that happens, that Krishna's hand is behind it. So the affection before the obstacle, and then that affection before the obstacle, Guru Sadhu Shastra, will help us to remember the affection behind the obstacle. That this is Krishna's hand that's dealing these particular arrangements and allow me to go through this as long as I do it properly, but ultimately for my own upliftment and elevation. Does that answer your question, Sri Goloka?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Is there a tendency to get entangled if one is, like you said, Bahirmukha? I've got what you mentioned, external facing, but
Yes.
Is there a tendency like to kind of see everything superficially and then get entangled? And how is that different from the material pool if I make those consistent mistakes in Krishna consciousness?
Yeah, the thing is, it's a question of what you want. See, the thing is that every devotee wants Krishna, otherwise they wouldn't be a devotee. That's not what differentiates us. The question isn't whether the devotee wants Krishna, it's how badly we want Krishna. That's the point. It's not whether I want Krishna. Everyone who comes to Krishna consciousness has some interest in Krishna or they wouldn't be here. So now that they're all in the university, it's a question of how badly they want to pass the tests. You see? So some kids, they've got enough desire to get to university, but they don't have enough to graduate. So they hang around the classroom, they do the homework every now and then, they sit in the lectures and they don't listen. Someone else in that same class, you see, they're paying attention, they discuss the subject with the other students. It's like they prepare for the test, they study, they revise, they learn. We're all in the classroom. The question is, how, what are you studying in the classroom, right? How are you studying in the classroom, right? It's the intensity of the study. And the great thing about Krishna consciousness is that the head of the school, the head of the university, if you call out to him sincerely, guaranteed the head of the entire university will personally help you to pass all the tests. So the ultimate factor is our desire and the association that's born of that desire. Yeah. So what we should do is we should pursue the best possible association. We should study at the best way we can. We should try to associate with the best students and serve them and inquire from them. Tadvidi pratena, priprasnena sevaya, upadikshanti te jnanam, jnaninas tatvidashinha. That's exactly what Krishna tells Arjuna. You approach the spiritual master. You inquire submissively, right? In the material world, you see people like get into arguments because it's a waste of time most of the time because they don't actually want to know the truth. They don't have the impartiality or the sobriety or the humility to actually know the truth. It's just, I've got a view and I'm going to force my view on you. Good luck. Good luck. And then you see that student doesn't go anywhere. The student will just run into one challenge after another challenge after another challenge. What will happen to that student that you talked about? Life will wear them down. And you see that sometimes. You see that sometimes with people, they've just been worn down. So they think they're being stubborn, but the only person that they're fooling is themselves. So life will just beat them down until they're literally broken enough that they become humble. And then when we're humble, it's like, you know what? I just admit, I don't know the answer. And I'm ready to listen to anyone who can explain what am I doing wrong. And then Krishna's like, dude, now we're ready to give you some understanding. So the point is, that's a bad student, actually. It would be far better if we became the student who understood that rather than trying to force life to be what I want it to be, let me truly try to understand, what does Krishna want? How does Krishna want? And this is a secret I've seen in the life of many successful devotees. So you see, even if we're told something that we can't do immediately, that's okay. The next question is, how do I move in that direction? There are many aspects of Krishna consciousness we can't suddenly flip to. It's unrealistic. We can't suddenly get to that stage. It doesn't work that way. Okay, I can't suddenly take the medicine in this way, but how can I start to move in that direction, even if it's just a little bit in that direction? Every step is the key to greater success, right? So going back to what you said, yes, we can get stuck. But also, if we have the desire at some point, if we really want to move beyond this, that intense desire, I don't want to be stuck anymore. I keep hitting my head against a brick wall. I keep making the same mistake. I don't want to keep doing this anymore. Krishna, please help me. Guru, please help me. Devotees, please help me. When our intensity to move beyond that challenge is strong enough, automatically arrangements will be made which help us to move forward. Okay. I'm going to take one other question because I saw Kaylee was waiting patiently. I saw your hand up. Is that you have a question, Kaylee? If you're there.
Hi, Krishna. Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to say, yeah, I really appreciate all the points. It's going to make for a lot of nice meditations and discussions throughout the day, and yeah, just so many things. I did have a question on this topic you were talking about. You used the analogy with the business, and even if the business is doing good or bad, the individual will still get paid.
Yeah.
And you kind of related this in the sense of Krishna consciousness, kind of, right? That's my understanding.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's actually from Prabhupada. If you in the lectures that Prabhupada gives in the 1960s, when he comes to America, he actually mentions that analogy. That's where I got it from. It's brilliant. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just curious in the sense because especially when you're speaking with Sri Golok about kind of like the selflessness that we're striving for as devotees, it feels like if we're seeing the business as Krishna consciousness or even as the whole of the world, if it's going good or bad, we just have our own, we're still getting paid the same. It seems like that could be I don't know, a little bit misleading and not exactly caring whether Krishna consciousness itself is doing good or bad, and we're just like kind of caring about our own form of payment. I don't know, can you explain this a little bit? Probably just not misunderstanding.
No, it's fine. It's a good question. So when I say if we're doing say that whether the business does well or badly, we're still getting paid. What I mean by that, let me put it another way. You see, the thing is that there's a lot of study on this, right? So in the Bhagavad Gita, what happens? Arjuna is being told by Krishna, you do what you're meant to do. Don't worry about the results. You see, the result, what Krishna tells me, he said, the result is got nothing to do with you. I'm the one in charge of it. Now, we sometimes think, well, yeah, that sounds impractical because actually the result's due to me. Now, so I studied this, right? So I thought, how does that actually work, first of all? So the way it works, and Krishna gives the clue in later chapters in the Bhagavad Gita, when he talks about the 5 factors of action, right? So, for example, let's say you're going to the airport, you've paid for a flight, okay? You got your ticket for the flight. You need to get to Philadelphia airport by 4 p.m. You've paid for your ticket. You've left early. You may not get to that flight, and it may be nothing to do with you. Let's say that there's a riot that breaks out en route. The police cordon off the roadways. Let's say your tire breaks down, right? Let's say there's a strike. You can't get a taxi. What that means is, it means that no matter how much you're trying, you're just one factor of many different factors. And if they don't all align, then it doesn't matter how hard you work. The flight you don't get on that plane, right? In the UK, like right now, I've never seen this happen for so many years. Over the last few years, there's been so many groups going on strike. Rail workers went on strike. Doctors went on strike. Nurses went on strike. Teachers went on strike. It's so many different groups. So imagine during the pandemic, I know many young people, they'd been studying all year for their exams. And then guess what? You can't come to the school. You can't come to the university. You can't sit the exams. It wasn't because they didn't study. It wasn't because they didn't buy the books, turn up to the classes. They did everything within their power. But there's always a factor beyond our control that has to arrange a whole raft of other things. Otherwise, whatever we want to do doesn't happen. So when we say that Krishna is the doer, we mean that whatever we try to do is dependent upon so many factors outside of our control. And unless those other things go on, nothing happens. You buy something from Amazon. Okay, I paid my money. I use my cash, my card. I put the things onto the website. But the person who's meant to deliver that package to you, the business, the government, right? The car that's meant to drive that person, the petrol station, the countries that give oil to pay for the, to supply the petrol, all of those things are beyond your control. So that's what we mean when we say that ultimately Christians do it. It's not philosophical. It's not some kind of, belief system. Oh, well, we feel that it's nothing to do with that. It's a fact. It's a logical fact. Unless there's a million other circumstances that have to go on before we can do anything, right? If I want, there's a strike that's going to happen in a few days' time. So even we going to America, if the particular airport staff go on strike, I won't be able to go. And it's not because the ticket's there, I'm going to get to the airport early, all this kind of stuff. If those airport staff say we're going on strike on that day, my effort's not going to go anywhere, right? And that's my point. So when we talk about Krishna is the ultimate doer, it's not philosophical, it's practical. That's the first point. Second, practicing Krishna consciousness includes the mood. Prabhupada says, Bhava Grahi Janardana. So if you're doing your job properly, you do care about the spreading of the movement. If you're doing your job properly, you do care about the devotees. If you're doing your job properly, you do care about the suffering humanity. But the outcome of your care is down to Krishna. How much your care manifests in a certain way externally, that's down to him. Because for the same reason that I just explained, when Prabhupada came to the West, if you read Lilamrita, some people don't like the Lilamrita. They don't like the first part of Lilamrita. And the complaint that they have about the first part of the Lilamrita is that they say it makes Prabhupada seem too human. He's going to America. He suffers 2 heart attacks on the way there. And he's a Paramahamsa, right? So people say, oh, sometimes it's difficult being a devotee. You haven't had 2 heart attacks coming by yourself to another country to spread the mission. And it's not like he was being speculative. Who told him to go and spread the mission? His guru told him to go and spread the mission. So he's not speculating. He's not doing just what he feels like doing. He's been told to go by another pure devotee. He comes to America. In Lilamrita, you will read, he sometimes says, I used to go back to the docks. I used to think to myself, this mission is not going anywhere. I used to think about going back to India. He actually says like that. Then Prabhupada later on told Tamal Krishnamurti, he says, when the mission had really spread, through the West, he said, I look back on those times, and I realized at the time that all these difficulties were there, that Krishna was just preparing me for what lay ahead. Mm. So to your point, Kaylee, it's not the actual service, right? That payment that we're getting either way, it's for doing the best that we can to move forward the organization. But we understand that we're doing the best we can to move forward the organization, but the CEO of the organization still controls the organization ultimately. Our CEO is Krishna, right? He's a benevolent CEO. So he sees and appreciates you're working really hard. You've created all these good strategies. You're making the business, you're doing as much as you can to help the business to succeed. Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes in the business, you're an incredible member of staff. You made some new process, product, or service for the business. And it's like, I want to help humanity. We've created this product. We've created this service, which is going to help humanity. And the CEO says, I really appreciate it, but we're not going to launch your product right now. Trust me, I know when the best time is to launch your product or service. And so Krishna is like that. So we do everything that we can, but we should know that the CEO is going to ultimately decide when things happen and how things happen. Yeah, does that make some sense, Kaylee?
Yeah, thank you so much. That was really, really beautifully put, and yeah, makes very clear. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for asking a great question. I'm also apologizing. I have a tendency to go over time, so
I don't think anybody minds.
Well, you never know. You never know. But anyway, Sarvatma Prabhu, I know you said I could go for 90 minutes, and I've just gone 5 minutes over. So I'm going to take the lead from the CEO of the call. What say you? Do we have more time for questions, or should we stop there? What do you think? I can't hear you. You're muted, Sarvatma Prabhu.
We can make a concession for you and give you a few extra minutes to finish the knockout punch. So make us all tap out. There is a question. There is a question in the chat that Prema Kishori, who's not here anymore. I don't see her name. So if you want to read the chat, she did ask a question or two.
Okay,
Maybe you
so
can answer that.
Sure, I'm scrolling back to that question. Let's see. Yes, actually, no, I can't see the question. I can't see the question. Are you sure it's Prema Kishori? Was it Leela Kishori or?
No, Prema Kishori. Let me see. No, I'm sorry. It was Parameshwari.
Okay, Parameshwari. Okay, let me find that question. Okay, so one question. How can one know when one should change their situations if they are suffering, or should one just go on enduring whatever struggles they face and pray to Krishna for help? Okay, let's start with that question because I think there's two questions. So it's a very good question. I was just listening to something on this recently. What we're meant to do is that there's three elements to this. There's three elements. The first thing is that we should always practically try to arrange our life in a way that is consciously favorable, okay? Where is that from? So in the 6 principles of surrender, the first 2, accept what's favorable, reject what's unfavorable. So that's on a conscious level. So we start like that. Now, the second point to that is that should be informed by Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So that's the second factor. So one, I'm acting on principle, I accept what's favorable, reject what's unfavorable. I do that in consultation. So Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. And then the third is where there's opportunity within those 2 considerations. So in accepting what's favorable and doing it in consultation, I then try to make it work as best as possible. Okay. Now, the reason why there's that third factor is because I'm also looking for feedback from the environment. It's just like you try to do some outreach a certain way, right? So you're doing a program and you call it one thing, hardly anyone comes. You do the same program, but you change your advertising, suddenly 1,000 people come. You've not changed what you're doing. It's the same service, but you're adjusting the way that you market it. You try to figure out, how do I make this work? You see? So that's the point. And because you're doing it in consultation, Krishna, within your heart and confirmed by the devotees, will let you know when something needs to change and what that change needs to be. Okay? That's a really important point. Now, one other factor to bear in mind here is that if we prematurely just change a situation and we haven't learned what we're meant to learn, then don't worry. You change the situation and the same challenge will turn up wherever you go. You see? So we don't have to worry too much about that because Krishna's a real person. It's not just, no one avoids what Krishna wants them to experience ultimately. Okay? So there's some devotees, there's something that they need to change in their consciousness. And they think, it's just this community. They're like this, they're like that. I'll go somewhere else. They go somewhere else, but they find that the same challenge that they had in that community, it appears wherever they go. And if they're honest with themselves, they'll understand that means A, it's some karma that I need to deal with. And B, most importantly, it's a consciousness, a factor in my own consciousness that I need to purify and change. You see? So this is not a material process. That's the point. And many devotees have seen that, the problems, the lessons that we don't, this is a saying that I had, right? Yeah, the lessons that we don't, the lessons that we avoid don't avoid us. So whatever lessons that we need to learn, wherever we go, if it's a lesson that's distinctly meant for my development, wherever I go, that lesson will follow me. It's that simple, So again, Accept what's favorable, reject what's unfavorable. Second point, do it in consultation. And just so your reference where that's from, that's in the purport in the first canto Bhagavatam. First canto, chapter 19, text number 12. In the purport to that place in the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says every major decision should be confirmed by some authority that makes the matter perfect. You see, so it's done in consultation. Just a nuance to that. The consultation should be sufficiently mature and well-wishing association of devotees, right? Your car breaks down, you don't ask the guy who makes the popcorn how to fix your car. You ask an engineer. So it should be someone who has some understanding and insight that can help you in this area. You see, that's the point. So accept what's favorable, reject what's unfavorable. That means that's another major part, Parameshwari. We sometimes go into difficulties because we just threw ourselves into something without thinking, which is usually a symptom of the mode of ignorance or passion. We're meant to practice devotional service from the platform of goodness upwards. So, right, we start, my spiritual master said, Vaishnavas usually work out of the mode of goodness. In Kali Yuga, unfortunately, if we even get to goodness, we're doing something incredible, right? So the point is, we try to get into something with conscious awareness that this is favorable and I'm avoiding what's unfavorable. Part one. Part two, I make decisions in association of devotees, the relevant, mature and sincerely well-wishing devotees, all the while keeping an eye out for Krishna's guidance. And part three, in any situation, I try to see first, how can I make it work? The last thing I'll tell you about this, and I've done this in my own life, and I'll be honest, it works like magic. How do you know what Krishna wants? One of the easiest ways to know whatever Krishna wants is that whatever you do, try and do it with devotion. Try and serve with humility, tolerance, patience, with devotion. Try to be in the mindset, how can I do this so that Krishna and Guru and the Vaishnavas are pleased? What happens is if you do that, Krishna gets automatically involved in whatever you're doing. And because of the sincerity and the devotion with which you're acting, he will pick you up. And if you're not meant to be there, he will actually move you to where you're meant to be. It really does work. I promise you that on my own life. It really does work. So the most important ingredient in every activity, in every situation you're in, is you're trying to serve Krishna, serve Guru, serve the Vaishnavas with love and devotion. That will guarantee, and I promise you this on my own life, that will absolutely guarantee that you'll be taken to where you need to be taken to when you need to go there. Okay. And the second part of your question is, how is surrender or dependence on Krishna like? Does that mean we constantly pray to Krishna to mitigate our material suffering? No, not necessarily. It means we pray to Krishna. It's a positive. Surrender, we surrender through prayer. We surrender through service. We surrender through hearing sincerely. We surrender through chanting sincerely. We have to remember, what is surrender? Surrender means to remove the obstacles to our natural flow of devotion towards Krishna. You see? So whenever I'm removing the obstacles by chanting sincerely, I'm removing the obstacles by hearing sincerely, I'm removing the obstacles by offering my service with as much devotion as I can. I'm removing all these obstacles, and then all that's left is your natural pure love for Krishna. There's a saying that perfection is not when there's nothing more to add. Perfection is when there's nothing more to take away. So when we remove everything that is not the real self, not the pure devotional living entity, when we remove all of those things away, all that you're left with is your natural loving state towards Krishna. Now, a side point is that you can say to Krishna, if there's something which is a challenge, which is interfering with your ability to serve, you can say, just like devotees did when Prabhupada was on the planet and he was ill. Prabhupada said to him, you can pray to Krishna, Krishna, if you want, please allow Prabhupada to stay longer. You know, like that. So you can pray in that way, Krishna, if it's good for me, if it's good for my devotional service, right, then please can you remove this obstacle so I can serve you better. But you see, the mood is, Krishna, I trust you, because trust means what? Trust is Shraddha. It's faith. I have that faith that you know what is better for me than I do. I will do everything from my limited perception, but I trust that you know better than I do. You know where I've come from, where I'm going, what karma I have, what challenges I have. So it doesn't make sense for me to just do something and ignore you, knowing that you control everything, you know everything, and you love me. I hope that answers your question, Parameshwari. Okay.
Prabhu, there is one more question. Let's make it last one. This is from Jayadeva, and it's also on the same thread on right.
So I'm looking, okay, I'll go, if Krishna is ultimately in control and arranging everything, and it's our karma that brings our destined happiness or suffering, then what becomes the point of endeavoring for anything? Yeah, in one sense, isn't it like we're just watching our karma play out, like watching a movie? Is a point just to serve Guru and Krishna with love and devotion, regardless of all the external material things? Very, very good question. So no, not exactly. I'll give you an example of how this works. So it's like people who do business, right? So some people, they know when a recession is coming, okay? So what do they do? I'm going to give a better example. There are certain people in the world who are buying up huge amounts of farmland, okay? Why? Because they know that there may be a situation in the future where there may be a lack of food. So they know that there's going to be a lack of food. So let's say that the karma of the world or the karma of a particular country is that in 10 years' time, there's going to be a lack of food. So what they do is they do something now so that when the situation hits, they can deal with it, okay? So in the same way, we have karma, but what do? We make the endeavor so that whenever the karma comes through, we're in the best possible position to deal with the karma. For example, let's give a very contemporary example. So the pandemic started in 2020, okay? So let's say someone knows the karma of the world is that from 2020 for a year or whatever period of time, there's going to be a global pandemic. So that's the world's karma. Okay, so now I know that that's the world's karma. Then in 2019, what do? I start stocking up on food. I start, doing natural health remedies. I start exercising to make sure that I've got a strong immune system. So now the karma hits me, but from a different perspective. So the situation is still the same. 2020, a pandemic happened. But because that was coming, I arranged my life in such a way that when the situation came, I was best positioned to deal with that karma. You see, that's how the karmic thing works. It's not just karma's there and no matter what happens. Yeah, you can experience karma from different angles. Right? That's the whole point. Insurance is like that. You pay for car insurance. Okay, your karma is that tomorrow when you're on a journey somewhere, your car's going to break down. But because you've got car insurance, you just call them up and they deal with it. So the car broke down. That was karma. But you had something in place to respond to that situation and to turn it into something auspicious. So what is that ability to respond to things in an auspicious way? That is the akarma. That is the Krishna consciousness. The body grows old. Okay, but I've been practicing Krishna consciousness. So when the body grows old, my consciousness is still very spiritually blissful. Even though my body's growing old, my body's breaking down. Okay, everyone's karma is the body breaks down, right? But now your consciousness is in such a space that when your body breaks down, you don't break down. That's what we were talking about in this class. We can experience our karma from a different angle. That's one way that the scripture explains it. But the other thing that scripture explains is Krishna karma. So what the scripture, I asked Bhakti Tirthamraj, I said, how do we deal with this? Is it when something happens to a person, is it their karma or is it Krishna? He wrote to me, he said, to the degree that we are surrendered, and this will answer, I think, the question you just put in the chat window. He wrote to me, he said, to the degree that we're surrendered to Krishna, to that degree we are above our material karma. And anyone who, and actually this is also mentioned by Shiv Ramaraj. There's a book that he wrote a few years ago called Sankalpa Kaumudi. He explains the exact same thing. So what does Krishna say? Yaya tamam prapadyante tam sateva bhajamiham. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Your surrender is not karmic. You see, it's not your karma. Karma is your material activities. Karma is not your spiritual activities. So your surrender to Krishna is not karma. That's not karma at all. It's not, and therefore it's not an illusion. So someone asked me this question. They said that if God knows everything that we're going to do, doesn't it mean that we're not responsible? I said, no. It's like right now, some of you on the call, let's say that someone on this call is starving, right? You were trapped somewhere and you were starved of food, you were starved of drink, and then I found you, right? And then I took you to my house and I put food and drink on the table. I know you're going to eat the food and you're going to drink whatever's there because you've been starving. Does that mean that I forced you to do it? Does that mean that you're under my control? No, it just means that I understand you enough to know that because you were starving, because you had nothing to eat, and because you were in that situation for such a long time, now that I put food and drink on the table, it's natural that you're going to eat the food and you're going to drink the drink because you want to preserve your life. I didn't make you do it. I didn't take away your free will. I just know you well enough to know what you're going to do in this situation. So the two things are separate. So Krishna is like that. He knows us well enough, but the circumstances that come upon us materially, not necessarily spiritually, are repercussions to our karma, but they're mitigated by association and they're mitigated by surrender. That's the point. So the more that we surrender, the more that Krishna takes our karma. That's what Krishna actually does. To the degree we're surrendered, it's not just he takes it all or he doesn't take it. To the degree that we're surrendered, he takes our karma and then he sees, okay, I've got your karma in my hands. This bit of your karma is still useful for you because if I give you this, it will help you in your spiritual life. So I'm going to give you the karma that's yours, but I'm going to give it to you according to my schedule, according to what is necessary and what is helpful for you because you're interested in coming back to me. But if you're not interested, then Krishna says, okay, you don't really want to surrender, so then you can just deal with your karma in the material world, right? So it's our choice. The more I surrender, the more Krishna's involved. Yeya tamam prapadyante, right? That's what he says. As all surrendered unto me, I reward them accordingly. And the less I'm surrendered, the less Krishna's involved. That's the law of relationships. If you want Krishna to be involved in your life, that means surrender. He'll get more and more involved. If you want Krishna to be less involved in your life, that's not surrendering. He'll say, okay, you don't want me to interfere. I won't trouble you. The choice is ours. Okay. Thank you for your question. And I think I've gone over enough. I've gone over time enough. I just want to say I'm really grateful to see all of you, Mother Brajalila, Ekavir, Bubrit, Savatma as my seniors. I always feel indebted to you all and thank you for tolerating me as you've tolerated me for many, many years. And I hope I can be of better service to all of you in the future. So forgive my mistakes and thank you for giving me an opportunity to purify myself through doing some service for you all. Hare Krishna.
I want to thank you on my behalf and on behalf of all the devotees, present and absent, and encourage and all the devotees to unmute themselves and express their gratitude.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you
very much for a very inspiring, enlightening class.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bhuta-Bhavana.
Haribo, Prabhu, thank you so
Krishna.
much.
Thank you, Bhuta-Bhavana. It's so good to see you again. Haribo.
Thank you so much, Bhuta-Bhavana Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Devaki. I also want to say Hare Krishna to Parijata and Dhruva. Great to see you both as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you too. See you soon.
See you soon, hopefully. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Jamil. I think I saw Tirtha, Gopi, Ambika. Great to thank you for joining the call. Great to hear be in your association. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Jagannath Pandit. Great to see you.
See you on Friday.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
you were
Yeah.
there. Oh, wonderful. You should give the seminar then. I should just sit in the audience.
No, I'm coming to hear you and Chidi Shakti.
No,
We
please.
are.
Yeah.
We should hear from you. I'm really glad you're coming, by the way. That would be great to see you, honestly. We miss you.
Wonderful. Yeah, we do too. That's why we're coming. Madhava and Kunti are coming too.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you for your question, Kaylee. It was a really wonderful. It was a purifying question. Helped me to understand it myself. Okay. Let's see who else is there. Oh, Yashoda. Mother Yashoda Mai. Hare Krishna. I saw your picture. I love the shades, by the way. It suits you.
Hari, another great job. Hari Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Hare Krishna. And Mother Vilas Manjari, Heaven Brown. Where'd you get that name from, by the way? Hare Krishna. Okay. So who else is here? Sure. Chintamani. Hare Krishna, Mother Chintamani.
Hi, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for this class. During the class, I just made a note and put it to next to my laptop. The surrender to Krishna, I can't lose. So I thank you so much for the transformational class and your years of study and commitment that has allowed you to make these offerings on behalf of our spiritual master. So thank you.
My classes are very deficient, but they've always somehow just very tolerant. But I don't really understand the philosophy very well, so I'm always trying to learn. So anyway, thank you for the encouragement. Thank you. Who's PD? Hare Krishna?
Hare Krishna. This is Parikshit Das. I heard the whole way. Hare Krishna. Therefore, I want to say since it's all about your Papa. I deliberately put PD there. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I don't. But that is me. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Parikshit Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Papa, and good day.
Of course, please give my love to your family as well. Hare Krishna.
I said no will. Hare Krishna.
Hare PD. Okay. Let's see who else is here. Yashodev, Hare Krishna, Lavanga, Hare Krishna. Ajamil, good to see you as well. See your picture. How are you? If you're present. Okay, maybe he's gone. Okay. Hare Krishna Janavatsa. How are you?
Getting purified.
Yeah, me too. Another feeling. Very well. What else is happening? Anyone like Vajalila, Parijata? What else is going on? What's the latest? What's the news?
While you doing your retreat in New Vrindavan, we have Body, Mind, Spirit here.
Oh, nice.
So we're ramping up. There's 100 people coming this weekend, 7, 8, 9, 10th, and then returning alumni of Body, Mind, Spirit coming the following weekend.
Wow.
They're coming with Romapat Swami, so he's leading it, and him and his disciple did the programming. So we hosting. So yeah, so it's nice. So that's latest.
Did you hear back from Swami Bhagavan Keshav? Did you reach out to him?
Yes, we did. Both Sri Goloka and I. And his servant said that just this morning, the servant replied to Dhruva saying that he's mentioned to Marge twice, but he doesn't have any answer from him. He's still in his planning phase.
Okay.
Still thinking about it, but no firm plans yet.
Okay. Anyway, let us know if you get an answer.
Yeah, it's in the works. So let's, yeah.
Okay. No worries.
Yeah.
Mother Vrajalila, you look very thoughtful. I wonder I can see the wheels spinning inside, but I don't know what the narrative is.
Actually, Kabir and I, we just got back from New York, so we have been traveling. Yeah. So yeah, and it's always nice to hear. I said, okay, let's get to that class this morning, Kabir Prabhu. It's good, we're facilitating this group of students for chaplaincy. So that's been really good. you know, we have a class with them on Saturdays from 5 to 8. So it's just really a lot of time. And then throughout the week, we're like facilitating all the work that they've been doing, because it's a 6 months course.
Oh, okay.
So we're doing a lot. You know, we're doing like with them, we're doing Karina Care. We're investing a lot of time to try to help people to speak their truth in ways that can be compassionate and caring.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, this is a science to learn, because we, you know, we're not always able to speak our truth. Most people don't, and most people are definitely not able to speak their truth with compassion and care. So I'm really appreciating you, because you very expertly speak the truth of Bhagavatam, and you try to do it with compassion and care, which is why I come and I listen to you.
No, I make mistakes all the time, but I just fail and just keep trying, get back up, fail again, and keep trying.
That's a part of the art, right?
Yeah.
That's a part of the art and the science, is to always keep getting back up.
We're gonna have to get you to give another. The devotees really appreciated the disciples meeting that you spoke at for the UK disciples. We'll have to get you to come back and do something on how to speak your truth with compassion. That'll be very interesting. It'd be great to hear that, actually.
Yeah, sometimes people think compassion is sentimentality, but it's not, you know, so how do we do that?
Yeah,
it's really a science. I'm learning and I make mistakes all the time.
Yeah, we'll have to book you in. Haribol Jamil, I can see you now.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu, I just wanted to thank you so much for a wonderful class this morning. Just always enlivening and always wonderful, you know, to hear you speak about Krishna and this process that we're engaged in. Because it's so important that we have this discussion on a daily basis to remember, as you say, as we get older, we begin to forget, and we have all these different problems that we have to deal with. But so thank you very much for that. You know, it's very enlivening. I'm over on the farm right now. I had to bring some devotees over to get some milk and stuff like that. But thank you very much, and I hope to hear, and I'll be seeing you soon.
Yeah, hopefully. Great to see you as always. Thank you. Haribol. Haribol. Yeah, so yeah, it's wonderful to see all the devotees and hear from you guys. Honestly, thank you so much. It was really good, really good. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you. So I may hopefully, depending on Parijata's magic and magical arrangements, maybe we'll see each other in May and get an Nagari.
Nice.
And hopefully
Nice.
let's see how that goes. But
yeah, Dhruva told me so. Keshava Maharaj is coming then also from when I spoke to Dhruva last in England. So is he definitely coming or no?
I don't know if it's I don't think definite, because from what Parijata said, it's not confirmed yet. So
Yeah.
I don't know
I have a question, Prabhu. Excuse me, can I say something? This is still being live streamed, so I just want everybody to know.
Okay.
Discussion.
Yeah.
Parijata's working on getting it closed off. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know who's the host, and I'm asking here at the farm because I'm not. So I think
I can stop it, because I think